on. Is it a big deal or a bad sign for Washington that all of this is going on?
It shouldn't be a big deal, okay? And I do applaud Ron Rivera for kind of trying to explain to Eric Bieniemy and explain to the media that he wasn't as clear as far as what he was the message he was trying to convey to the media as he should have been. And he said that he expressed that to Eric Bieniemy. Now, look, I still do believe that, in that moment, that was very poor leadership on the part of Ron. Like, even, at first glance, when you first hear these kind of things, I guess I should say, from your players about how Eric's coaching style is something that they're not accustomed to. That's something that immediately, when you start talking about those kind of dynamics, you start talking about those kind of internal relationships in regards to your relationships with your players, that's in-house business. That's not something that you need to be sharing with us, the media, and talking about with us, the media, especially when you're trying to reestablish a new culture there, a new way of doing things in particular on the offensive side of the football in front of a new ownership group that is looking to see just how you handle business, not on the football field, but off the football field, in the locker room, with the media. How do you conduct things? Do you have a championship methodology in terms of keeping things internal, making sure everyone's pushing in the same direction, you're supporting your coaches? Because as the head coach, you're the CEO, right? You're the one who's kind of charting the course of how the football team is going to try and ascend and become one of those pivotal primetime type of teams in the NFL. And when you do this kind of thing and you start kind of, sharing some of the most intimate discussions with the media, it just can cause the kind of fractures and fissures in the foundation that you're trying to establish that you just don't need. And I thought that was bad judgment on the part of Ron Rivera. And I think when you spin it forward, if you're Eric Bieniemy and you're Ron Rivera, and you know just how sensitive the conversation has been around Eric Bieniemy. You know just how agenda-driven on the part of many it has been around Eric Bieniemy. I think you should take even greater care to make sure that the message that you're putting out there, especially with when his name is attached to it, has to be clear and concise, and it cannot be left to be interpreted by others who are kind of looking for ways to kind of continue to tear this man down, which we have seen happen time and time again over the past 4 or 5 years, the time he has been in Kansas City, or the time that he was previously in Kansas City as offensive coordinator. So I think there's the part that really just involves Washington and the offensive football team and the offensive players, and then there's the bigger picture that Ron has to be aware of too. Now, do I think moving forward, it has to be something that we have to revisit over and over and over again? And anytime maybe Washington's football team, from an offensive perspective, hits a bump, that we have to go back to that? No, of course not. That's not what I think. But I think this is something that, as a head coach, you have to be very, very aware of. You have to make sure that you handle the right way. And to Ron's credit, he has said, look, ever since the players did come to him, he did direct the players to go to Eric. There was some open communication about it, and some, kind of exchanging of ideas. He thinks that the offense has really had some of its best string of practices that they have had all during training camp. So in the end, there may be some positive things that come out of it. And hopefully there is some positive things that come out of it, because as I said before, I think Washington is one of those sleeping type of teams that no one is really given a whole lot of credit or a whole lot of chance in terms of being a contender in the NFC East. I think it's one of those teams that could really explode and really catch some people off guard. And Eric Bieniemy in particular would be a direct beneficiary of that as someone who wants to be a head coach. So I think in the end, all's going to be good. But Ron has to be aware of this kind of thing, man, because it's not just about, it's no big deal. Don't worry about it. It is a big deal. It's a very big deal, because we know that this is more than just about football when we're talking about Eric Bieniemy in particular.
So I think I have 2 points to that, Louis. Number one, and I'm with you for the most part. The only thing I disagree with is you talk about there may be some fractures and fissures within this organization based off of that comment. I don't see it that way. I see the media really taking this and making this a bigger deal. Could be. Okay, for sure. Could be, for sure. I don't think there will be, right? I don't think that's going to happen, because I think that what Ron Rivera is saying is, hey, this is what I heard from the players, and essentially players, y'all need to get used to this. Why? Because we brought Eric Bieniemy in here to change our culture, to help us win. We haven't won in a very long time, whether that's a division or whether that's having a winning record. And so I think I hear what you're saying as far as like Ron Rivera, the lack of judgment and leadership per se. But sometimes you say things, you don't realize that it's going to take and have a life of its own. To say that, yeah, the players came, they think he's coaching too hard, you're not realizing, I don't see that as necessarily an in-house comment. And mind you, that's coach versus player, right? If I'm a player and my coach said that, maybe I would be upset. But Bieniemy is like, yeah, man, this is who I am. This is what I've been. And so to your point, yes, the culture needs to change. To your point, there could be, maybe won't be fractures and fissures. And to your point, this Washington team could be a sleeping giant. But I just think that this is kind of taking a life of its own, which, of course, Ron Rivera did not intend it to be that way. But also, I don't think this is an in-house per se comment. Yeah, open door policy. Players, you have an issue? Come talk to me. All right, now you've talked to me. All right, now go talk to the man who you have an issue with. Man-to-man conversation, because he's the one you have to answer to at the end of the day. He's your offensive coordinator. Yes, I'm the head coach, but you have an issue with him. Take it up with him as a man.
What's the impact of Terrell Williams getting this head coaching opportunity?
It's on-the-job training. It's exactly what guys need. Real time, in the cockpit, time, making the kind of decisions that head coaches have to make. And it doesn't just start on game day. Mike Vrabel gave him responsibilities to take over in the middle of the week in terms of getting up in front of the football team, trying to develop and giving them the message for this week's preseason game, coming up with a plan as to what players are going to start the game, how much time they're going to play, what kind of plays they're going to put in for these individual players, what are the kind of things that they want to see from the individual players. So it's an all-encompassing A to Z type of responsibility that Mike is entrusting Terrell Williams with. And you could not commend Mike Vrabel more for doing that kind of thing. That's forward thinking. That's actually taking action. That's not just talking about it and having Zooms and conferences and saying, how can we make things better? That's taking action and doing it. This is something I saw done down at the Senior Bowl this year, where they took offensive coordinators in the NFL and made them head coaches for the respective teams at the Senior Bowl, took position coaches and elevated them to coordinator positions for the week and then during the game at the Senior Bowl. And then everyone else in the NFL, the entire NFL community, the entire media community could see these guys in these elevated roles and how they handled it. The kind of professionalism that they showed, the kind of relationship building tactics that they had, and the kind of relationship building characteristics that they had, and it was on display in real time. So these are the kind of things that need to be implemented by more football teams. More head coaches need to be more forward thinking about this, because now you get to see it. Now you get to see how these guys react in these situations, and you can tell, as Coach Williams was standing there, just how grateful they are for it and how much they are dying to have these kind of opportunities. It's a win-win all the way around.
It's leadership in action, and what Terrell Williams was talking about there, this time on task, actual in-game decision-making. This is more than the accelerator program that is out there for coaches and executives. Coaches and executives I've talked to around the league have felt that program in ways has fallen short. This is how you get actual experience that puts you in a position to be able to talk about this in an interview. I think it's a great thing that Mike Vrabel's doing. He's in a position, though, to do this because he's coached 80-plus games. He doesn't need the reps as a head coach himself. The other side of this matchup is Matt Eberflus, a team that I cover, the Chicago Bears. I'll be at this game tomorrow. He said that because of where he's at in his career as a head coach, those reps are important for him to get going into the preseason. So I think it matters differently to different people, different levels of experience. But Terrell Williams, hopefully, he's been a defensive line coach his entire career. You'd hope that the next step for him would be then defensive coordinator, then making that jump to head coach, and this should be a good start.
And to your point, Courtney, and also to your point, Lewis, this is a great sign of leadership, yes, but I think a even better sign of leadership would be the decision makers at the top, the 31 team owners, seeing this and saying, okay, now we're going to actually make the decision to hire a minority or a black head coach, right? Opportunity and experience matters. I believe that 100%. But there are a lot of other coaches who don't have as much experience or as much opportunity, and they're still getting head coaching jobs. And so, this is a huge step, a great step, as we saw for in Tennessee and for Terrell Williams, and hopefully other teams implement this as well. But something has to happen outside of, we talked about some of the different programs and also this on-job training. Decision makers at the top, the owners at the top who are deciding who's my head coach, who's my GM, they need to either use this experience or change their mindset and belief system and say, you know what, based off of this experience, or maybe I'm going to give you a chance like I gave other people a chance, I'm actually going to start hiring more minority or black head coaches in the NFL.
What's the biggest preseason week one storyline that you have your eye on?
I don't think any question for me. It is Anthony Richardson as he makes his debut tomorrow night. against, I believe it's the Buffalo Bills, and how is he going to look in Shane Steichen's Indianapolis Colts version of the 2023 offense? Just how is this young man going to adapt to the new terminology, the new players? Is he going to look comfortable in the pocket? Do they try and get him outside the pocket a lot here in a preseason game? Do they expose him at all in the running game here in the preseason? Or is this just going to be targeted reps to kind of get him comfortable with throwing the football, get him comfortable with the speed of the NFL game, just get his feet wet a little bit, play him a series or two, the same way that the Texans played C.J. Richardson, and then build from there? Look, from an athletic perspective, from a prospect perspective, this guy, his upside is limitless. Absolutely limitless. The way in which he grips a football and throws it with the kind of fluidity and velocity and just raw power that he does absolutely will take your breath away. I remember seeing him for the first time live at the NFL Scouting Combine this year, and I was just enamored with the upside and the raw physical gifts that he has. Now we get to see him put that to use in 11-on-11, albeit preseason, but against NFL caliber competition, and get a little bit of a glimpse inside of what Shane Steichen has in store for this young man and what he envisions for him going forward. I just want him to come out of the gates fast, have a couple completions, maybe dazzle you a little bit with that running ability, and get out. Get out, because it's going to be a long career for him. Although, I'd love to see him play a lot, but just get in and get out, move on to the next game.
Where Anthony Richardson is in his development is what I'm eyeing coming out of this weekend, because no matter how many reps, how many series he gets with the first team offense on Saturday, how much further he's going to have to go to win that quarterback battle between himself and Gardner Minshew is a storyline that we're going to be following coming out of Indianapolis the next couple of weeks, because we will see Gardner Minshew in this game. But with Anthony Richardson and Minshew seemingly having no line of delineation between the two of them, they were listed as under the first team offense as a starting quarterback. That tells me that both still have a long way to go to cement themselves as the guy that's going to be taking the reps week one in this offense. So we know Anthony Richardson has a big arm. We know that he's got a very powerful arm. Seeing some of those throws would be good, but also just like the overall operation of this offense. This is somebody who started 12 games at Florida last season, a sub-54 completion percentage. The ceiling may be high. It absolutely is, but we just haven't seen enough yet to know, is he going to be ready by week one? I feel like Chris Ballard said it perfectly a couple months ago at the draft, saying we don't expect this guy to be Superman week one. But then you've got comments from Michael Pittman, his number one wide receiver, coming out saying he should be a 99 in this, a 99 in that. And of course, we're referring to Madden rankings. Let's pump the brakes a little bit and let's just see Anthony Richardson operate an NFL offense and see how he does with it in limited reps.
Well, I'm most excited, Courtney, to see not necessarily Anthony Richardson, but what does this Colts offense look like without Jonathan Taylor? And I get it, it's preseason week one, but all these things, like we're excited about his potential, but some of that was supposed to be tamed a little bit based off the fact that you can hand it off back to one of the top running back in the game. Well, now he's out, he's rehabbing, et cetera. But like, what is the Colts situation going to look like? How is this whole thing going to transpire? Whether it's holding out, whether it's he's rehabbing, what is this? Are you going to have to put more on Anthony Richardson as the season goes on? I get it. It's preseason game one. You might get a series or two, get in, get out, get on with your life. But as the season progresses, and oh, by the way, when we get to week one, what will this offense look like? And will the plan change drastically, dramatically? Will there be minor changes if there's no running back behind him?
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.